Hello everyone, and welcome to your Masters in Healthcare Management. My name is Sandy, and today we'll be discussing project management. Today we're here with Dr. Camilleri, who will be sharing his practical and academic experience on the topic. Dr. Camilleri, thank you for your time today. So let's get right to our questions. Why do you think project management is an important topic?
Well, I would say project management is not only important, but it is essential. Mainly because every organization at some stage or another will undertake a project, such as introducing a new product or service, or the development of a new production line. These are all projects. A promotion campaign is also a project. All construction type of projects, whether they're minor or major, are all considered as projects. Besides, I think it's important also for the individual to have knowledge of project management, because even in our daily lives, we're encountering projects all the time. For instance, students preparing a dissertation, that is considered a project. When a person organizes a family holiday, that is also a project. So it is important that individuals and companies have this expertise.
Okay. When referring to projects, what do you really mean by the word project?
Okay. A project is a temporary undertaking. It's not something permanent. And it has a definite start and completion stage. So basically any undertaking that falls within that definition is considered to be a project. And that's the reason why I gave a wide spectrum of examples from minor things to major things as being projects.
Okay. So what would you say is the difference between operations management and project management?
Okay, there's a big difference between the two, and the disciplines are also different. With operations management, we tend to focus on two aspects: the management of processes and the aspects in having efficiency and effectiveness in the way that we conduct these processes. And the reason for this is because operations management is about repetitive operations. For instance, let's take Farsons. They make beer, Lager. I would imagine that Lager has been produced for the last 70 or 80 years, or maybe even longer. It's a repetitive process. And because it's repetitive, through industrial engineering studies, one can have effective and efficient operations. One can manage the processes. Whereas with projects, as I said before, a project is a temporary piece of undertaking, which has a definite start and completion period. So there's no repetition in the way these things are conducted. For example, a project could be setting up a production line. So let's assume I'm an engineer and someone in Farsons tells me set up a production line for a new product. That is a project. But once the production line starts in operation, that is operations. And projects, because they don't have this repetitive aspect, will depend also on the uniqueness. For instance, let me explain. Let's assume that we have an undertaking to build 2 houses or 3 houses. And the houses are the same design and everything. And one would say, well, that is repetitive. So therefore you can focus on processes. But with projects, imagine that I'm building one house at Rabat, another house at Santa Maria Estate, and let's say another house Melliha. The probability when you come to excavate the foundations at Rabat, the probability is that you're going to hit some historical artifacts. Whereas at Santa Maria State, the probability is that there will be clay. So therefore,
Clay, yeah.
again, the process of building is going to change. And probably if you're at the top of Menliha, it's going to be rock. So even though there are three reparative type of undertakings, but the three of them will encounter unique problems. And this is what distinguishes operations management from project management. Furthermore, a lot of people are under the impression that projects are major things, grand things. But in actual fact, a project, as I had stated previously in some of the examples, could be minor. There could be a couple of hours work. There could be 1,000 hours work. That could include one person. It could include a dozen persons. It could include just the units where you work, or it could go across the organizational boundaries. So projects are dynamic, and obviously there's then more risk associated with them as well.
All right. And in your view, can projects be treated the same? So do they all follow the same implementation pattern?
Well, my research shows that projects are not the same.
Okay.
But then, when you think about it, the dissimilarities between them is not that major either. So my research, and obviously research of other practitioners as well, we tend to categorize projects as what we call type 1 projects and type 2 projects. Type 1 projects are physical, they're tangible. For instance, building a block of flats. That is something tangible. You can see it at the end of the day. Type 2 projects are untangibles. They're non-physical. For instance, a policy change within the organization, where there's, at the end of the day, there's no physical object that you can see. For instance, an ICT infrastructure where you're laying the cables and so forth, that's a physical undertaking there. You can actually see the ducting and the cables. But developing a computer system, the software, you don't see software. You only feel the effect of the software. Basically, also type 1 projects tend to be, all right, so we're saying they're physical. It's a physical object. They can be very complex. For instance, building a ship, building a bridge, constructing a road, building a house. So they could be complex, and there's different levels of complexity. But at the end of the day, they're more manageable. And the reason being that normally with type 1 projects, there's a consensus of what you are going to do. Usually you can see a model. For instance, in the days before technology, in actual fact, they still do it today, architects can provide a physical model. You go into an office and you actually see the building or the structure. Obviously today with high tech, you see a computer model and you can see the 3-dimensional of the building. You can even have walkthroughs. So these type of projects, there's consensus. There's a physical model, which is accurate. Also, outputs and outcomes are indistinguishable. What do I mean by that? Well, by outputs, I mean the deliverable. I am delivering something. And the outcome is, does the thing that I am delivering doing what it's supposed to be doing? With type 1 projects, those two things are together. There's no distinction. If I deliver a cruise liner, I am delivering a cruise liner. Unless but you would pick up the fault straight away. Someone can't deliver a tugboat and call it a cruise liner. So there's this So there's no distinction between outputs and outcomes. Also, at the end of the project closure, there's an intrinsic value. For instance, if we build a block of flats, we know that the market value of that block of flats is X euros. With type 2 projects, as I said, these are the non-physical objects. Here we're dealing with change. And so what happens when you have change? When you have change, you have multiple and powerful stakeholders. And these stakeholders may have rival agendas. For instance, the current project plans for the Central Link project. I'm not talking about the construction stage, I'm just talking about the actual plan, where government has just announced just the last couple of days. The stakeholders are Infrastructure Malta, which is the people that are building the project. There are local councils. Some local councils agree with the project, others do not. There's the NGOs, which the majority of them are against it. So you have this multiple levels of stakeholders, and their agendas are completely different. So here, agreements on the actual project itself is very difficult. And even when you have agreement at the end of the day, because there is normally a compromise, the outcome becomes questionable. Because even though you have this compromise, at the end of the day, not everyone will be, because being a compromise, no one's going to be 100% happy with the project. Another problem with the non-physical type of projects is there's no intrinsic value. For instance, if I was to develop a computer system, an accounting system, you may know the cost of the system, but what is the intrinsic value of the system to the company, to the organization? Particularly if the organization's survival depends on it. So it's very difficult to actually place a value on it. Another problem with type 2 projects is that the outputs, the deliverables, are distinct from the outcomes. For instance, let's assume that government decides to introduce a system, e-government, where people apply for permits online. And the system is a fantastic system, so that's the deliverable is the system. But then at the end of the day, the penetration rate, that is people using the system, is very low. So in actual fact, with the non-physical type of projects, type 2, the two are distinct. First the deliverable, and then the usage, which is in contrast to what we were saying before about type 1. Unfortunately, with type 2 projects, they have the greatest strategic value, because normally they go beyond the units or departments or division that has actually undertaking the project. For instance, Infrastructure Malta may be undertaking the Central Link project, but in actual fact, the strategic value is the traffic management for the whole area around the surrounding area. So with these type of projects, they have the greatest strategic value that affects, depending on the project, let's say the whole organization. For example, you may develop, let's say, a system for the Inland Revenue Department. So it affects the Inland Revenue Department. But if you develop an accrual accounting system for government, which is at the moment being implemented, you're actually affecting the ministries and all the departments across government. And that's what makes it, that's the distinction between the two. Furthermore, type 2 projects have more risk attached to them because of the factors I've I've just mentioned. They're very risky, and they're also very difficult to actually manage as a project.
Okay, thank you for that. You are the author of a book entitled Project Success: Critical Factors and Behaviors. My question for you, Dr. Camilleri, is why project success and why not project management success?
Okay. Again, my research shows that project management success is just one factor.
Mm-hmm.
There are different levels of success in a project. In actual fact, my research shows that there are 4 levels. One is project management success, which means, again, the emphasis is on the deliverables. Have I delivered the project on time, on budget, and to specifications? So that is one of them. For example, is the Kapara flyover project, was that a success? Was it delivered on time, to budget, and to specifications? Probably from the media that I have read, yes, it actually meets that criteria. So from a project management point of view, that is successful. The other level of success is what we call repeatable project management success. So here, again, we're focusing on deliverables, but the emphasis here is repeatability. Am I consistent in delivering my projects on time, to budget, and to specifications? Or do I fluctuate? Today, I deliver a project okay, next time not, and so forth. For instance, again, the infrastructure agency. Is it delivering its projects consistently, on time, on budget, to specifications? Indications are, from the work that they have done so far, they seem to be on the right track. Okay. With repeatability, although I can give an example, but although it's not exactly to do with projects. For instance, take a McDonald's hamburger. Okay. I could eat a McDonald's hamburger at Republic Street, and I could eat it at Singapore, which I have done.
Nice.
and the taste is the same. And the reason being, obviously, that they must have some recipe, which is a standard that is applicable across. And again, with this level, repeatable project management success, do we have that type of mechanism in place? So the first 2, project management success, repeatable project management success, are talking about outputs, deliverables. Then we come to what we call project success. That is, whether the project is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And here we come to the project outcomes. This is the outcome. What is the outcome of the project? For example, if we take Mater Dei Hospital, is it a successful project? Does it cater for the volume of patients that was supposed to cater for? Up to some years ago, I used to have a question mark, because it takes time to assess whether a project is successful or not. But considering the fact that government is always adding more wards, it's building polyclinics outside to take the pressure off the hospital. My conclusion is more like to say, no, the project wasn't successful. It may be state of the art, but as a project, it's not successful, because maybe it didn't do what it's supposed to do. That is, catering for X amount of patients per year or whatever. So that's the 3rd level. The 4th level is corporate success. Has the project impacted your corporate strategy as it's supposed to be, as it's supposed to have impacted it? For instance, let's assume, again, I'll take the Farson's example, that we establish a new production line for a new product. And we, as a corporate impact, let's say at Farsons, we think that we will capture 5% of the market. So the target impact on the strategy, on the corporate strategy is that we're supposed to capture 5% of the market, and therefore our profitability will increase by X%. So let's assume we only achieve 2%. So you still may have a successful project because the product is selling, but it's not impacting your corporate strategy as what you thought you were impacting it. So the question is not whether a project is successful at a project management level. It goes much deeper. So, for example, I could be establishing a new product line, but no one purchases the item. The new product line was established on time, budget, the specifications, but no one buys the product. It could be the other way. I could be way behind budget, way behind time. The specifications must be always there. The project must be always to specifications because that is the foundation. But at the same time, even though I have failed at the project management stage, the selling points, the product sells. So the project at that level is a success. Another example, and I'll quote two major projects here, the Sydney Opera House, which is the icon for Australia. Yes. From a project management point of view, it was a nightmare. Okay. It cost about 16 times what it's supposed to cost. It was delivered something like 10 years behind schedule. Okay. But can we say that the project is unsuccessful? I don't think so. The same with the English Channel Tunnel. Same problems. Project management, a nightmare. But again, can we say that the project is not successful? No. From a corporate point of view, I don't know. Because I don't know what the plans were for the English Channel. I have a feeling that with the English Channel, the initial company that maybe started off probably is bankrupt. And the one that took over maybe now is reaping the... This happened with the Iridium project as well. Many years ago, there was a plan to have something like 300 satellites across the globe, Motorola. In actual fact, they did launch the satellites, but the volume of traffic at that time was not sufficient. In actual fact, the Motorola company that they set up for this particular project, in actual fact, went into liquidation. The people that took it over, because they bought it with pennies, obviously today they haven't looked back.
That's true.
So that is the why project management is only one part. That it goes much deeper. Unfortunately, we tend to emphasize project management.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, what in your view needs to be done to achieve these 4 levels of project success?
Again, my research shows, this is the basis of my book actually, what inspired me to write the book was precisely the questions: why are projects a failure when they have achieved the budget, time, and so forth? And why are they successful when they have failed? And this is where I started off with my research. Well, in my previous reply to your question, I ended up with corporate success as the last item. In actual fact, that is the first item. Okay. Because the first thing that you should do when undertaking a project is to look at it, and you must evaluate it and assess whether that project supports your corporate strategy. This is what we call strategic fit. So the project, does it support our corporate strategy or not? For instance, I'll give you an example. I don't know whether you've heard about the Bridge to Nowhere in Malta. Have you heard of it? That costs something. Although there's controversy. Some say it cost 800,000 euros. Others say it cost much more.
Okay.
But when you think of it, what strategy was it trying to support? Was it a project undertaken by someone for nostalgic reasons?
True.
Because there was a bridge in the past there. They remember it from the war. And these people are in a position maybe of power that can push that project. And this is a real problem with projects. Sometimes the project proponent is not basing his logic on having the project on the corporate strategy, but on his fed, whether I want it or not. So that is the first thing, strategic fit. Does it support the corporate strategy? And by the way, this question applies to everything that we undertake in the organization. If we undertake whether a project or anything, and it doesn't support the corporate strategy, we are simply wasting resources. The next level, I'll take project management again. Project management success. Again, we're talking about deliverables, and there we have four major items. There are others, but these are the four major ones. Project scope. Have I defined exactly what needs to be done? And also excluded things that I don't want to be done. For instance, I'll give you an example. The Bumarad road between Mosta, as you go down the hill, linking to Bumarad.
Okay.
It's a very nice road. While they were constructing it, someone raised a question about the culvert, that is the drainage of the road.
Okay.
And that wasn't part of the project scope. What does that mean? That means that the project is now going to be over the budget that was established at that tendering stage, which is even much worse. Because you have a contract now. You probably, particularly in governments, you've probably had chosen the cheapest from the other competitors, and now the contractor can now recoup maybe to make more profit, because you have no choice but to give it to the present contractor, and the contractor will likely overcharge you for the culverts to make up for the low profit margin and the road. So project scope is important, because project scope ends up as being a major part of the contract. Project organization. How do you organize your project? And there are different organization structures that we can have. And also the project team structures. Obviously, the larger the team, the more difficult it is to communicate and to manage. So it's better to have a number of teams that do different tasks rather than have one big team. That is another. And the fourth and most important is project planning and control. You must plan the project. Unfortunately, a lot of organizations undertake projects without planning. Because sometimes, even though this may be illogical, management see planning as something which is a luxury, or it's wasting time. But in actual fact, the time spent in planning is an investment in ensuring that you deliver it on time. And the component that goes with planning is obviously control. There's no point in just planning. Planning is theory. Reality is when you come to deliver, and that is where you need control. You need to control, monitor what is taking place to ensure that your plan, the theory, and reality converge. And you don't obviously deliver beyond the budget and time. Then we come to the third one, repeatable project management success. When I gave the example about the McDonald's hamburger, you will find that McDonald's has a manual that specifies what needs to be done. And with repeatable project management success, what you need is information flow processes, how the information flows to the organization so that your reports, that you're, let's say, ahead or behind, the reason why, and so forth, whether the materials have been delivered, what materials are being delivered in 10 days' time to make sure that everything will be in order. Knowledge management. There's a tendency where you don't document the successes and failures, the same mistakes will be repeated. And knowledge management is a way of documenting your experience so that you don't repeat the same mistakes. Additionally, and this is what happens in a lot of organizations, knowledge management in many organizations is in the brain of the people that work there. So when someone resigns, the experience and knowledge goes with that person. What's even worse is that if that person goes to your competitor, because your loss is his gain or her gain. The other factor is risk management. You need to assess the risk and have contingency plans for the different types of risks that you may encounter, and obviously your response to the particular risk. And finally, the applicable standards. If I'm a construction company, I have to follow certain construction rules. If I am McDonald's and laying out, let's not talk about the production of the bread because that's operations, but the layout of the kitchen and so forth needs to be according to the standards. When we come to project success, again, here we're talking about outcomes. Here we're talking about management and leadership, that you have to have a champion that is driving the project all the time. Commitment and participation. You need commitment from the project team and also their involvement. It is not the project manager who is responsible for the project, but everyone that the project team must share in that responsibility. And the other important factor is internal and external communication. For instance, I talked about the Centerlink project. The other day, I had an interview with the CEO of Infrastructure in Malta, and he emphasized that it's important for them to explain the project to all stakeholders, because Engineer Tsapardi was a bit confused that maybe people are not understanding what the project is all about, and maybe that the disruption that the project will cause may not be as great as what people are imagining. So if these factors are conducted correctly, then you'll have success at the 4 levels. But as you can see, it is difficult to achieve success at the 4 levels.
That's right, yeah. And what would you say are the implications of this project success framework?
Okay. To explain this, I would go to the extremes.
Okay.
In terms of organizations. Small organizations, very large organizations. Let's take the first extreme. A small organization, a one-man show. With a small organization, you have to be successful at the 4 levels. You just can't afford, because you don't have the resources. It's as plain as that. With large organizations, let's take government. Government is the biggest employer, biggest organization. In Malta, it's probably the biggest organization in any country, in any case. If you are large, you can probably fail at the 4 levels and still succeed. I've never heard of a government being thrown out of office prematurely because of projects.
True.
Okay. So you can fail at level 1 and 2, that is project management success and repeatable project management success. But there's a limit, because if you consistently fail at levels 1 or 2, that means that the funds to implement your strategy is being diminished. So if let's say a government has 10 projects and it is always delivering its projects behind schedule and at extra cost, instead of delivering 10 projects, it may deliver 5 or 6. So therefore, it's not achieving its full strategy. And this is where governments then are voted out of office, because if they don't implement their strategy, whether it's health, whether it's finance or whatever, that's where people will judge. So therefore, yes, you can fail at levels 1 or 2, but there's a limit how much you can fail. It is important to succeed at levels 3 and 4, at least for the projects that you have implemented. Because again, as I'm saying, that if you fail at levels 3 or 4, then your strategy is down the drain. So that's the position with the framework.
Okay, thank you. And for my last question today, Dr. Camilleri, is what does the future hold for project management?
Okay, with project management is like any other information system.
Okay.
All right. It generates a tremendous amount of data. Therefore, let's say blockchain technology. Blockchain technology can be used to store securely the data about the projects that you're undertaking. To utilize the information, it is another, because this is a major fault in many organizations, particularly in government. There's a tremendous amount of information, but the issue is, are we utilizing that information for decision-making purposes? And this is where big data, analytics, data mining, and artificial intelligence come in. For example, take a construction company. It's bidding for a tender with government. To prepare a bid is costly and timely. But if the construction company has been in the industry for some time and it has a database of previous projects, then with the right software and a bit of AI, artificial intelligence, you can, I won't say automatically, but you can have the facility by using analytics, big data, data mining, to prepare a bid quickly at a much lower cost than your competitor. Another example, take an aircraft maintenance firm. It's where crews are operating to refurbish an aircraft or to service it. That is, again, within the definition of a temporary piece of work with a start and an end. And we can use artificial intelligence there to monitor whether the work crew are actually abiding by the safety regulations that are inbuilt in the project network. So if they have a standard that they should be working to, the system will automatically, by using certain what we call cluster analysis and things like that, and artificial intelligence, to warn you that, even though they may have ticked it, it wasn't really done in the order which it was supposed to be done. Or listen, they haven't ticked this particular thing. This has been missed. To me, this is where project management will go in the future. It will use these type of tools to ensure that things are done safely and also the outcomes are 100%.
Dr. Camilleri, that concludes the questions I have for you today. I'd like to thank you for your time.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you. So there you have it. Today we spoke about project management. Our key topics included the definition of projects and the importance of project management. We looked into the 4 levels of project success and their implications. We differentiated between operations and project management. And lastly, we ended up with the future for project management. That's it for today. Thank you, and see you next time.